This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you to the glory of God and to the benefit of all those who listen.
All right, praise God, and welcome to this session number 4 of iPad for All Computing. I want to thank you for joining us, and today we get to talk about iCloud. Now, we already discussed the other day the importance of having an Apple account. We used to call them Apple IDs, but Apple has changed that name to Apple account now. And if at any point you notice me suddenly becoming very robotic sounding, it's probably just because I'm switching from cellular to Wi-Fi. I'm almost home from this appointment that I was doing, and I when I switch, there might be a momentary interruption in the connection, but we'll just keep right on moving once that happens. So maybe I'll just pause when we get about there, and that way we'll make sure that that's in good shape. Now, we're talking about iCloud. Part of the benefit of having an Apple account is that it gives you access to iCloud. Now, I want to give you a definition here. This is the definition of iCloud that was initially announced almost 15 years ago now, I guess 14 years ago, when iCloud was introduced. iCloud stores your content and then wirelessly pushes it to all of your devices, or wirelessly syncs it across all of your devices. I'm paraphrasing a bit. It is automatic, it's integrated, it's built right into your apps. So there's nothing to do except just sign in with your Apple account, and then you have access to all these iCloud features. Now, when iCloud was introduced, it already had probably 9 or 10, maybe 11 different features that many years ago. But since that time, it has grown by leaps and bounds. And so when we talk about iCloud, it's very important that we keep in mind there's so much that iCloud does. And years ago, when we first started teaching this class, I would actually go through and I'd list every iCloud feature to the best of my ability. And what I find is that now there's just so many features that we're not going to do it that way. We're not going to list every feature because it would just be overwhelming. It would be too much. So I'm going to give you some general feature categories of things that iCloud can do and how it can help you. And so the first one I want to start out with is syncing across devices. Now, this is a really broad category, but it's perhaps my favorite category of iCloud features. What this means is if I have, for example, an iPad, an iPhone, maybe a Mac, if I add, for example, an event to the calendar on my iPhone, that event automatically shows up in the calendar on my iPad. If I add, let's say, a reminder on my iPad, that reminder automatically shows up on my iPhone. Across all devices, iPhone, iPad, and Mac, whichever device I add something, remove something, modify something, that change gets synced automatically, wirelessly, across all of my devices. In other words, iCloud allows us to have all of our stuff on all of our devices, no matter where we are. We don't have to do anything manually. We don't have to make any manual configuration changes. We just set this up once, and it automatically happens for us. This includes not only calendars and reminders and contacts, but it also includes Safari information like bookmarks and favorites. It includes notes. It includes photos. It includes documents because of iCloud Drive. So when we have documents that we want to save, we can use iCloud Drive to save those documents, those files, whatever they may be. And then they'll be available too on all of our devices. I really prefer to use iCloud Drive wherever it's possible to do so. You might remember the days where you'd work on a project computer and then you'd want to show that to somebody. Maybe, you're going out to dinner with somebody, you want to show them, and you say, well, I had this, I know I had it, but I must have brought the wrong flash drive, or I must have, put it on the other floppy disk or the other CD or something. I guess I don't have it with me. Well, gone are those days, because as long as you're using iCloud Drive, you're going to be able to have access to that file, that project, on every single device that you have. It doesn't matter which device it is. And if you decide while you're looking at it with someone and they notice, oh, you misspelled this word, or there's something wrong here, we need to make a change to it, you can make that change on your iPhone while you're out at dinner. When you come home, that change is automatically going to be there on your iPad, on your Macintosh, whatever device it is that you're using, that those changes are going to be there. All right, I'm going to pause. So, as I was saying, whenever you use iCloud, you have all of these different features: the syncing of your contacts, calendars, reminders. You have the syncing of your photos. Using iCloud Photos, we can take a photo on one device, that photo shows up, or a video. That photo or video shows up on all of our other devices. And likewise, if we edit or delete a photo or video on one device, it gets edited or deleted on all the other devices as well. Again, iCloud Drive is a place that lets you store your documents, your any kind of, really, you can create folders. We're going to learn all about that as we progress through our iPad class here. You're going to see that we can create folders and subfolders. We can store any kind of file. Doesn't matter what it is. And then that's available on all of our devices. And that's what I was saying before with the brief intermission there, was that even if you don't think about it, you used to have to say, well, which device, which disk, which drive? No, you don't have to do that anymore. Make changes on one device, they show up on all. Can't stress that enough. It's so important and so useful. And I really, really like it. And I think it's one of the best things about iCloud. And so, again, this covers documents, anything you can store, any kind of file you can store on iCloud Drive. Plus, it covers contacts, calendars, reminders, notes, photos, Safari, bookmarks, and so on. In addition to all of that, there are several other categories of things that iCloud can do. One of them is availability of media and apps. Availability of media and apps. So what I mean by that is, if we purchase a TV show or a movie or a song. Now, most often, if we're going to do a lot of songs, we're probably going to use Apple Music as a subscription. I'll come back to that. But if we would purchase a song or an album or a TV show or a movie or a ringtone or a book or an audio book or an app from the App Store, all of these are available to re-download on as many devices as we may have. Now, some of the media has a bit of a limitation, like I think there's a 10 device limit on music, movies, and TV shows, but then you can have Apple TVs that are above and beyond that don't really count against that. So that's like downloading onto your iPhone, iPad, or Mac. You have a 10 device limit, but there's no limit on streaming it with the Apple TVs on your account. You also have no limit on apps. So if I purchase an app on one device, I can re-download that app at no cost on all of my other devices. I don't have to buy it again. And if I try to buy it, instead of going to the purchased section, if I actually try to buy it, it's going to tell me you've already purchased this. You want to download it again for free? Well, sure. Of course I do, So that's how that works. And that includes all media, music, as I said, TV shows, movies, books, ringtones, audiobooks, apps. And it even includes most app subscriptions, because one way or another, you're either going to be able to share a subscription with multiple devices or something. There's usually an allowance for that as well. We'll also talk about family sharing in a moment as well. But just right now, understand that this is all of your devices. You have an iPhone, you have an iPad or two iPads, you have a Mac, whatever. And again, Apple TV and HomePod are included in this in whatever ways it would be applicable to them, right? They don't have all of this stuff, but they would have the things that are relevant. So you can watch a show or a movie on any device, right? If I start watching a movie that I've rented, in the living room, and then we want to go into the kitchen and make a snack, we can continue the movie on the Apple TV in the kitchen or in the bedroom or whatever it is that we want to do. You just pick right up where you left off. Maybe you're leaving the house. Maybe you're going to some kind of an event, and you want to keep watching this show that you were watching at home. So you just pick it up right on your iPhone. All of this um, is able to not only be downloaded again free of charge, but it's also able to be either streamed or the progress synced across the board. Your book progress, if you're reading a book in the Apple Books app, your bookmarks, your reading progress, your highlights and notes, all of those things will sync across all of your devices. Now, the next category of iCloud features that I'd like to talk about are what we call continuity features, or what Apple calls continuity features. And this is where, for example, let's say that I am working in the Apple Mail app on my iPad and I'm composing an email. And suddenly I realize, oh, it's time for me to leave. I'm going out to that dinner or that event or whatever it is. And I really don't think I need to take my iPad this time. But, oh man, I didn't finish that email. I guess it's going to have to wait till I get home, right? Well, not really. Because with continuity through a feature called handoff, I can actually continue composing that email right where I left off on another device that's signed into the same iCloud account. So if I pick up my iPhone, and again, as we progress through the iPad class, we'll teach you how to do this. But just know that when I'm working on one device, I can pick up another device and I can access what's called the handoff badge. And it's going to allow me to pick up the same task right where I left off. We're not just talking about like opening the mail app and then I have to start composing again or find it in my drafts or something. No, it's actually going to open the same message in the same place on another device. And this works not only with mail, it works with messages, it works with Safari, it works with apps like Pages and Keynote, Numbers. So all of these apps support handoff and many others, which is a continuity feature of iCloud. Now, another thing that works with continuity across multiple devices is phone calls and text messages. So text messages, of course, some of you may already know this and some of you may not. We're going to teach this in the iPad class in about 2 weeks, I think, if I remember correctly. But you may already know that there are different kinds of messages when you send texts to people. There are iMessages, which are Apple device to Apple device. So if I'm sending a message to another Apple user, that's usually going to be an iMessage. That's the best option, the most secure, the most features. And for those who can see it, the incoming iMessages are denoted with a blue bubble, message bubble. Well, there's also the colored green message bubbles. Those are the non-iMessages, and they're one of a couple of other options. Again, we're going to teach this in depth in a couple of weeks. But in both cases, whether they're iMessages or something else, they can be accessed across all of your devices. So when I get a message that's sent to my phone number, not only does it come to my iPhone, but it also comes to my iPad, to my Mac, to my watch, and technically even my HomePod. HomePods can access that. Now, typically, they're not going to ring unless I specifically just sent a message from the HomePod, and then it will ding when somebody replies within a certain period of time. But normally, the HomePods aren't going to make a noise when a message comes in, but you can say to them, you can say SIRI, read my messages, and then she will, even on the HomePod. And because the HomePod recognizes different voices, it will know who is speaking. So if I say read my messages, it'll read messages that come to me. Whereas if my wife or one of my kids says read my messages, it will respond accordingly for their accounts, their messages. But in all of these cases, you have continuity where across the board, across all of your devices, you're able to get and send and receive all of your messages. Likewise, this also applies to phone calls, both FaceTime and regular calls. So on my iPad, even if it's not a cellular iPad, as long as I have it signed into the same account as my iPhone, I can make calls and I can receive calls on my iPad. The iPad will actually ring like a phone when somebody calls my iPhone, and so will the Mac. And so I can answer the call on whichever device is nearest, whichever one I prefer. And in many cases, I can even transfer the call. So, for example, if I happen to answer the phone on my iPad, I can hand it off to my phone. If I happen to answer the call on my watch, I can transfer to my iPhone. I can transfer calls back and forth in a number of different ways and easily be on whichever device I prefer at a given time. And this even includes being in the car with Apple CarPlay. Now, Uh, there's even more to continuity than just those examples. There is the ability, for example, to use your iPhone or iPad as the continuity keyboard for your Apple TV. You can enter passwords directly from your iPhone or iPad onto your Apple TV. You can use your iPhone as a keyboard for your Apple Watch. You can use your Apple Watch to unlock other devices on your account, like your Mac, for example. And there are just so many different options that you have. Continuity is a really very important feature of iCloud. So far, if you're keeping track or taking notes, we talked about syncing across devices. We talked about availability and progress syncing of media and apps. And now we've talked about continuity, handoff, and those kinds of things as well. And I'm sure I'm missing some of the continuity features. But again, I'm trying to give you just an overview of how awesome this stuff really is. Now, one of the options that iCloud offers to you as well that I think is really important to spend a few moments talking about is iCloud backups, because your iPhone and your iPad can back up wirelessly automatically to iCloud, and they can do that every night while you're sleeping. You just plug in your device, and they're going to back up all of your data to iCloud in case you ever need to restore it for some reason. Maybe you had to restore your device, or maybe you just got a new device and you want to use that backup to set it up. So again, iCloud backups, very, very useful, very important, and configured by default automatically. All right. So by default, it's going to back up to iCloud. And again, that will happen every day when your device is plugged in, when it's asleep or locked. And it used to have to be on Wi-Fi. I don't even think that's the case anymore. I think you can back up over cellular now if you so choose. That definitely used to be one of the three requirements, but as I say, I really don't believe that it is anymore. Another part of iCloud as it relates to security is the Passwords app. And this used to be called Keychain, but now there is an entirely separate app for it. And that Passwords app stores securely, we're talking military grade encryption here, all of your passwords, your usernames, your Wi-Fi passwords, all of these kinds of things that you need in order to log into different websites and apps, or to join different wireless networks. The nice part about this is, again, all we have to do is authenticate with our face or with Touch ID, and we are able to quickly autofill passwords into, again, any website or app that needs them. I highly encourage, all right, especially in this day and age of people trying to hack things. I think it was with this class that I shared the other day that my parents just were hacked the other day. Their debit card for their bank was hacked, and they lost about $1,000 in that process. Now, praise God, the bank's gonna make good on that, and they'll get that money back. If they haven't already, they will. But it's just the idea. There are people out there trying to do this kind of malicious and evil stuff. And so I highly encourage you to use the Passwords app because it's a good way to securely store all your passwords. What we're going to learn in this class later on, and some of you have already learned it if you've taken any of our other classes, is that we really don't want to reuse passwords across multiple websites, because if you do that and somebody hacks one of them, they've got access to all of your stuff. So it's really discouraged to use the same password. But a lot of people do that so they don't forget it. They say, well, that way I remember my password. I'm going to use the same one everywhere so I don't forget what my password is. Well, the Passwords app is your answer to that, because you don't have to remember your passwords anymore. It stores them securely for you, automatically enters them when they are needed, or lets you choose the correct one to enter when it's needed. And what's more, the Passwords app, we're going to learn, can create really strong passwords for you, so that even that part doesn't have to be done by you. It will suggest and create very strong passwords that are secure, that are difficult to hack, and it will autofill those, and store them for you. So this is a really good feature of iCloud. And the other thing that this Passwords app will do is it will let you know if any of the passwords have been found in a data leak. So if it believes that one of your passwords has been compromised, you can immediately go to that particular website and reset the password and change it to something better, something different, something stronger, or just something that hasn't been hacked, right? So that is the Passwords app, another very important part of the iCloud system. Now, there are a lot of other aspects to this. You will realize quickly that iCloud is involved in a lot of things. For example, AirDrop requires iCloud to be enabled. MailDrop requires iCloud. Now, what in the world are AirDrop and MailDrop? Well, AirDrop is close proximity. I want to share a file, a photo, a website, with somebody that's near me, like in the same room, and I can just wirelessly airdrop it to them. We don't even have to be on Wi-Fi, because it creates a sort of ad hoc Wi-Fi network just on the spur of the moment, and allows me to send information, data, photos, otherwise, to another device. You have to give permission for it, right? You have to enable it and give permission, so somebody's not going to be able to send something to you maliciously, but you have to approve it. But it is a very convenient way to share photos and files. And then MailDrop is useful for those times when you have an attachment that's too large to send directly via email. And so what happens is that the MailDrop will upload the attachment that you want to send, again, to iCloud, and then it will give the recipient a link to that email and that attachment, rather. And so then they can download the attachment when they have opportunity, and it doesn't have to send a large file over your email server. There are a lot of other situations like collaboration, invitations, right? So collaboration is, multiple people working on the same document or note, or even a tab group in Safari. We'll learn about that. And they can work at the same time or at different times. It doesn't matter, but they can both contribute to a project. And invitation is like, I want to invite someone to a calendar event, or using the new Invites app, that Apple just released recently for the iPhone. I can create an event and I can invite other people. And again, iCloud sort of controls and manages all of that. We have features that allow us to access all of our music on all of our devices, such as iTunes Match. But I actually prefer Apple Music. It includes the iCloud library that iTunes Match has, but it also includes access to all of Apple Music, so millions and millions of songs, and for one set price per month. And so that's a good segue into talking about Apple subscription services that you may want to consider when you are setting up your new devices here, getting started. And I really like the Apple One bundles. I believe there are three, and that they're just different price points and include different features. The highest end one is, I think, called Premier, and I believe that's like $34, $37 a month now, something like that. But that includes the family subscription to Apple Music, so for up to 6 people. It includes Apple TV Plus, Apple Arcade, which is a whole bunch of very high quality games Not a lot of them voiceover accessible yet because a lot of them are very, very graphical, but I think you'll see more of that over time. Apple News Plus, which gives you access to thousands of articles and full magazines and audio stories every day, things that go above and beyond just the basic Apple News that's free. So you get access to that, as I said, music, TV Plus, arcade, news plus, fitness plus, right? So that you can work out with your Apple Watch and your Apple TV or whatever device you're using. And you can get these audio workouts and video workouts that different trainers have uploaded each week. And you can access celebrity workouts that do like these, you just take a walk, while listening to certain music or things of that nature too. So there's all sorts of fitness material that's available in Apple Fitness Plus. And then in addition to that, you get the 2 terabyte iCloud storage plan. And that is what's called iCloud Plus. So you have Apple One and then iCloud Plus separately. But some of the Apple One, or I guess all of the Apple One bundles, give you access to iCloud Plus, just different tiers of it. But iCloud Plus gives you extra storage. So by default, you're going to get 5 gigabytes of storage. Now, what uses that 5 gigabytes? Does that mean that my calendar events, my reminders, my Safari bookmark, is that counting against my iCloud storage? No, it is not. That kind of stuff does not count against your iCloud storage. That is separate. Well, what about all those movies and shows? I purchased 100 movies over time. Is that counting against my iCloud storage? No, absolutely not. That is not counting against your storage because it's just an authorization to stream or download those movies or shows. So none of that counts against your iCloud storage. So what does count against the 5 gigabytes? Well, your iCloud backups, all right, so your device backups, your iCloud mail, your iCloud photos, and your photos and videos that are stored in iCloud. Also, your iCloud Drive. Anything you put into iCloud Drive is going to count against your personal iCloud storage. And there might be a couple of other things that I'm forgetting, but those are the big ones that are going to count against your personal iCloud storage. So by default, you're going to get 5 gigabytes free. Every Apple account gets 5 gigabytes. If you are wanting a little more, you get one of the Apple One bundles. It's going to include it, or you can get iCloud Plus individually. So you can pay 99 cents a month, which gives you 50 gigabytes of iCloud storage instead of 5. You can pay $2.99 a month, and I believe that gives you 200 gigabytes of iCloud storage. And then you can get much more. You can get 2 terabytes, 4 terabytes, 6 terabytes, or even 12 terabytes now of iCloud storage at varying price points. And I, for example, my family and I have the Apple One Premier bundle, so we already get 2 terabytes included with that. But I've gone ahead and added an additional 2 terabytes so that we have a total of 4 terabytes of iCloud storage, praise God, to share among the family. And that is, each person has their own private and secure storage. I've had people worry about, I don't want to share it with the family because I don't want them to be able to access my stuff. Well, they're not. It's just that the storage allotment is shared. And again, this is, I could always get more if I need to. Right now, we've only used about a terabyte and some change. So we still have over 3 terabytes remaining, I think, of iCloud storage or thereabout. So we're good for quite some time yet. But in iCloud Plus, which does include these various storage tiers, you also get some additional features and functionality there too. So you get the ability to have special email features, like you can have your own domain. You can actually have, whatever, like, info@mydomain.com, right? Now, there's some configuration that has to be done to make that all happen, but it is doable. So you can get your own domain and have all those emails forwarded to iCloud. And you have actually the Apple Invites app that I mentioned a few moments ago requires an iCloud Plus subscription. So that's one of the new features of iCloud Plus. And then also Private Relay, which is kind of like a VPN that works in Safari. That is included in iCloud Plus. there's a lot of features that you are enhancing by upgrading to iCloud Plus. And I highly recommend looking at both Apple One and iCloud Plus, or maybe some combination of the two, some basic storage tier. You're going to find all of this to be very useful. And it auto renews, so you can cancel it anytime if you don't want it anymore. But I would encourage you to give some of it a try. Now, the other thing we need to talk about then is family sharing. And I've broached this a little bit already with the music and with the iCloud storage, but let me go a little more in depth and explain this a little bit. The basic intention is for each person in the family to have his or her own Apple account. One Apple account for one person on as many devices as you have signed into that same Apple account. If we want other people to be able to access that stuff, then we have family sharing. Now, with family sharing, one person is the family organizer, and they set up the family share group. And then they can add up to 5 additional Apple accounts to that. And you send an invite, and people can join that family sharing. So when you create a family share group, you get a family calendar, right? It's not that I want everything to be shared on all of the calendar events. There's some calendar events that are specifically for my work. There are some that are specifically for my wife's job. We don't need to have each other's stuff there. But then there are those events that are for the whole family. And so we can specifically designate an event to go onto the family calendar. We get a family reminders list, and we can create more reminders lists that are shared, like our grocery list. But we can share those with whomever we want. But we get a family reminders list. We get a family iCloud photo library and a family album. So we can put photos and videos in the album, but we can also move photos and videos to the shared library so that everybody in the family has access to those photos and videos. And you can even have it set to automatically move photos and videos to the shared library that it thinks are relevant. If you take a picture of somebody in the family and it recognizes that person in the family, then it's going to maybe move that or suggest to move it to the shared library. With family sharing, we also can share purchases and subscriptions. And I mentioned that to you earlier. So if one person in the family buys an app or a subscription, in most cases, that is shareable with all the members of the family so that somebody doesn't have to pay, a second time for an app that someone else in the family already got. I mentioned that you can share iCloud storage. Again, you're not actually sharing the folder itself. Other people are not going to be able to access your files or anything. It's just you're sharing the allotted storage. And so family sharing is very useful. We use that a lot in many different ways. And if you have children and you need to restrict certain things with young kids, maybe the apps that they buy, you can even turn on ask to buy when they're under 18. I used to have that on for my kids so that they would have to get approval from me anytime they wanted to buy something. And I would then be able to approve or decline that request. Over time, after they demonstrated their trustworthiness and so on, I disabled that for both of my kids. Praise God, neither one, well, one's almost 18 anyway now, but neither one of them have the ask to buy feature on anymore, but we used to do that. And then you can also manage screen time with the family if you need to do that for your kids. You can set restrictions in content, you can set communication limits, you can set overall amount of time limits and then grant them more time if you choose to. There are a lot of ways that you can use the screen time features to manage family members' devices as well. Now, as I said, I know there are a lot of things that I'm probably missing here that are covered in iCloud or family sharing and so forth. But I'd like to go to Sarah. I think, Sarah, you're still a co-host. I think you can unmute. Let me, if I don't hear you in a minute or so, I'll check. But I think you can.
I'm here.
Yep. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Praise God. Thanks for holding down the fort today while I was finishing up my.
Oh, we had a chat room.
Oh, well, hey, got to do that once in a while, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can think of that stands out that either that you want to add to or that I'm totally forgetting with iCloud and Apple services and so on.
No, no. Again, I underutilize all that. I don't have family, like sharing. My kids are, they're grown and gone. Um, so no, but I know a lot of people on the call definitely need it or would benefit from it.
Benefit, right, right, absolutely, absolutely.
In fact, it made me think of my daughter who basically just sent me, she's the one who did a whole bundle and sent it to me. And I'm like, I guess I'm the kid now. So,
Well, there you
no,
go.
nothing to add. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I don't know that Cliff is going to be able to, if he's even here. I know he had some other things going on. If he needs, if you want to, Cliff, if you're here and you have something to say, you can let us know and
Mm.
we'll unmute you. But I didn't even look to see.
Yeah. I know that we discussed, before you got on, the fact that, our different devices share with each other. And that is absolutely true. What you were saying, the handoff. Um, and I
Yeah.
love that.
That's just so convenient, isn't it? I mean, it just makes things
Well,
so
I can
easy.
start writing something on my phone or on my iPad and then find it on my phone. And in fact, I used to think it was just I could use one at a time. Now I can have them both on the same document and the changes happen absolutely,
Right.
like at the same time,
Right.
instantaneously.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And it is, for those of us who used computers, back in the 90s or early 2000s, I mean, it's a whole different world. Um, I remember when I was in college, I used to keep a CD in my, laptop at all times because I don't remember if I was, I guess probably what it was that I wanted to make sure I had all those files saved to a CD. So if I ever needed to use them on another computer, I could just, pull out that CD and then put it into another computer and I'd have all my documents and stuff. But how often do you actually remember to do that, And this totally eliminates that. I can work on one device and it's just there on all my devices.
Yeah, the other thing is, I can have, for instance, I can have my phone reading a document that I'm still working on so that I can hear, what it sounds like and be also working on, the other device. And
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
that's pretty amazing. I mean, it is apple to apple though,
Right. Right.
we're going from, pages to pages or notes to notes.
Exactly. I mean, there is iCloud.com, which does have some of those web apps that a non Apple user could use, but it's not going to be the same experience. Your best experience is definitely going to be Apple to Apple. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that just talking about iCloud.com reminded me of another feature that we really didn't talk about, and that is the Find My feature. And how useful is that? You can see where all of your devices are, where family member devices are. If you misplace a device, you can play a sound on it, or you can, all of these different things. And with the latest devices and the newest phones and so forth, you can even get close. Like if let's say I'm in an amusement park and I say, well, meet me over by the, by the food area or by this carousel or whatever the ride is, and you can actually see now how many feet you are away from another person or something. It used to be just the approximate location, but now you can actually do it in a matter of literal feet. And that's also used if you misplace your AirPods. I think the AirPods do that. The Apple remote for the Siri remote for the Apple TV does that. So you can, find a lost remote in the couch or something,
I was
as
going to
well.
say that's always in the couch or in the fridge.
Yeah.
But how do you set up, like, if you're meeting someone in your group at another place? You're not talking about that, or are you?
Well, you could bring other people who are not in the family into the Find My. Like you can grant someone temporary access if you don't want them to have all full-time access, you can say like, invite them, share my location with them for an hour or for the rest of today or something like that, so that even people who are not maybe in your family, but they're in this group today, they can see, and you can see each other's locations then too.
Yeah. So you cannot be stalked like without permission.
No, absolutely. You have to grant permission at every turn in those situations. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. You get a message, someone wants to share your location. Even with family now, like the family automatically goes into Find My and stuff, but there's like an option that says, like notify me. I forget exactly how it words it, but like if I'm looking at, let's say, my wife's location, there's an option that says notify me when she leaves that location or something like that. But even that will prompt her and say that, Matthew wants to be notified when you leave your current location, something like that. So even that you can't do without the person's permission or awareness.
Right, because Apple's all about privacy.
They are. That's
But
right.
I like that. I like that about AirDrop. I like
Oh
that
yeah.
about like when you're sharing Wi-Fi.
Yep.
There you always have to grant permission.
Well, I think for some of us, that's part of what we count on with Apple now. I mean, again, not that we're trying to do anything malicious or have anything to hide, but it's just nice to know that there's someone out there that cares that deeply about our privacy, about our security, about our stuff being ours. And you can turn on, unless you're in the UK now, but we will not get into politics. But you can turn on advanced data protection here in the United States and most other countries, and then that really locks it down. That encrypts everything, and the only one who has the encryption key is you on your trusted devices. Not even Apple can get into that, and it's a very, very high level of data encryption. So they're offering things that I'm not aware, and I don't mind standing corrected if indeed I am wrong in some situations, but I'm not aware of any other, um, one of the mainstream manufacturers that offers something that robust in the way of privacy and data protection for the customer.
Yeah, I think I'd have to be a much more important human being to use that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think the casual users probably are not going to bother to turn that on, but you know,
Yeah.
well.
Thanks for joining today's session. Didn't get your question answered? Have an additional comment or feedback? Email us info@ttjtech.biz or info@stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U. That's STURITUP.com. Or check out our websites for additional resources. That's ttjtech.biz or stiritup.com. And remember, subscribe to the newsletter when you're there. That way, you don't miss out on any upcoming announcements or events. Thanks for joining us. God bless, and see you next time.